The papyrus crackles under your hand, dry, brittle, and precious. The ink pot beside you sweats in the Nile heat, its scent sharp and earthy, mixing with the faint tang of sweat on your neck. A fly lands on your wrist. You don't dare move. The hall is silent except for the slow scrape of reed pens and the shuffle of bare feet on stone. The air hangs heavy, dust motes drifting like tiny gods deciding who to bless and who to curse. You are not a pharaoh, not a priest, not a warrior. You are a boy with ink-stained fingers in a chamber that smells of dust and power. One wrong stroke, and your master will not raise his voice. He will simply take your scroll, roll it tight, and burn it. And when the ash scatters over the courtyard, so will your name. This is where your life begins, in ink, sand, and silence. You are born in Thebes, not in the gilded quarters of the palace, but in a cramped mud brick room at the edge of the servants' district. Your father tends the storerooms, your mother grinds grain for the kitchens. You are not poor enough to be invisible, but not important enough to be remembered. Your earliest lessons are not in play, but in symbols, a dangled reed, the folded cloth, the vulture's head. Before you can read them, you are told to memorize their shapes, before you understand their meaning. You are made to copy them over and over. Mistakes are not corrected with gentle words. The rod of correction is real but thin, polished stick that stings across your knuckles. The scribes tell you the pain is part of the learning, as if the hieroglyph for discipline must be written on your skin before it can be written on papyrus. You learn the smell of ink before you know the smell of fresh bread. Black ink from soot, red ink from ochre, both as bitter on your tongue as they are sharp in your nose. You dream in symbols long before you dream in words. And somewhere between the strokes and the sting, you learn your first truth. The scribe's life is not about writing your own story. It's about preserving someone else's. The house of life, that is what they call the temple school. But it is not a place of comfort. It is a place where scrolls outnumber meals, where your stomach growls louder than the chanting of lessons. You sit cross-legged on the cool limestone floor. Reed pen in hand, papyrus balanced on your knee. The day begins with the hymns praise to Ra, to Osiris, to Thoth, god of scribes and wisdom. You write them out even before you truly understand their meaning, because here, the shape of the word matters more than the thought behind it. Next come tax records, grain counts, merchant accounts. You copy them with the same precision as you do love poems that speak of longing you have never felt. Each line must be perfect, no wavering, no blotting, no hesitation. The discipline is as relentless as the sun outside. A boy's ear is on his back, he listens when he is beaten. The proverb is no idle saying. A misstroke earns you the whip across your shoulders. Too many mistakes, and you will copy the same line 100 times until your wrist cramps and your eyes blur. One day, as you deliver scrolls to the high scribe's chambers, you catch sight of them, the forbidden scrolls, locked in cedar chests, sealed with cord and clay, their ends painted in royal blue. They are not hymns, nor records, nor poems. They are history and magic. Laws of the dead and the living, truths that ordinary eyes are not meant to read. You feel the weight of their presence like a shadow in the room. One day, you promise yourself, you will see inside. Your apprenticeship ends with a summons, the kind that comes rolled in fine linen, sealed with beeswax, and carried by a temple runner who doesn't meet your eyes. You have been assigned to copy the accounts and offerings for Ammon, king of the gods. It sounds like an honor. It is also a test. A god cannot read an ugly hand, and neither can the priests who guard his wealth. Every grain count, every jar of oil, every measure of beer must be recorded in perfect lines, the columns straight, the symbols clear, the spacing as precise as the stones of Karnak's walls. Quickly, you learn that ink is not only for truth. It is for survival. A single miscalculation, too much barley recorded, too little wine, it can ruin a priest's reputation, or yours. When a nobleman's family complains of short offerings, the scribe's hand is the first to be questioned. You begin to notice other things, subtle alterations in the numbers after you hand in your work. Sometimes the totals grow larger, sometimes smaller. The high priests never explain, and you never ask. In the house of life, truth is a matter of divine record. But on papyrus, truth is flexible. At night, you lie awake under the thin reed mat, wondering if the gods are fooled, or if they simply don't care. You think you understand the value of ink until you are given your first sealed scroll to copy. It comes wrapped in linen, marked with the private seal of a noble house, and carried in the hands of a servant who keeps glancing over his shoulder. You set it on your desk, feeling the faint crackle of the reed fiber under your fingers. You break the seal and unroll it carefully. The words inside are polite, painfully polite. But you can hear the venom in them. A gift that is really an insult. A blessing that is really a threat. You copy each sign with the care of a man building a tomb for a living king. One wrong stroke could change friend to enemy. In these moments, you realize ink is sharper than any soldier's blade. Your lines can make a man a hero or a traitor. A single choice of word could keep two cities at peace or set them at war. No one tells you the rules, because there are none. You must learn them by watching who prospers and who disappears. A scribe is called a servant of truth, but you quickly understand the truth. Truth is whatever the powerful say it is. And your job is to make their truth eternal. The papyrus you copy today could be read in courts tomorrow or found centuries later in the sand. Either way, your hand will be there, unseen but undeniable, holding the weight of secrets too dangerous to speak aloud. It happens in an afternoon you barely remember, the blur of heat, flies, and the impatient tapping of a nobleman's sandal. He thrusts a half-finished decree into your hands. Quickly, boy. It must go to the vizier before sunset. Your reed pen scratches over the papyrus. The order is clear enough, a transfer of grain from one noble estate to another. But in the rush, your mind trips. The name of the receiving estate blurs with another from a previous scroll. One sign misplaced, just one. The error is invisible to all but the trained eye. And fortunately, the vizier's eye is very well trained. Days later, the city is in uproar. The wrong estate has claimed the grain shipment, grain meant for the temple offerings to Ammon. Priests cry blasphemy. Nobles rage at theft. Farmers whisper that the gods are angry. And in the quiet inner chambers, the noble who rushed you folds his arms and says, "It was the scribe." No defense is heard. No testimony is taken. In this world, the scribe's hand is the final authority on truth. And when that truth falters, it is the scribe who falls. Your reed pens are taken from you as though they were weapons. The high scribe will not meet your eyes. You are escorted from the temple gates you thought you'd serve until your death. Your new post is not in the grand house of life, but in the dust-choked storehouses on the river's edge. You spend your days tallying sacks of grain, scratching numbers into wooden tallies instead of verses to the gods. The ink dries on your hands, the calluses on your fingers soften, but inside, the words do not stop. They crowd your mind, unspoken, and written heavy as the sand that buries forgotten tombs. Here, surrounded by grain and silence, you learn the cruelest truth of all. A scribe's greatest fear is not death. It is being unread. The storehouse is not a place of glory. It is a place of heat, flies, and the endless rustle of rats in the shadows. You once copied the deeds of kings, now you copy the number of sacks of barley in a room that smells like old sweat and mouse droppings. Your desk is a plank of wood propped on amphory. The ink here is gritty, mixed with dust that drifts down from the rafters. Your reed pens split more often than they write true lines. From time to time, you glimpse the temple steps from afar. Young scribes, boys whose hands still shake when they hold a pen, are escorted up to the house of life in fresh linen. They are chosen for their patron's favor, not their steady hands. You can almost hear the mistakes they will make, and the praise they will still receive. In the storehouse, no one cares if your letters curve like a falcon S-wing or stumble like a lame goat. As long as the numbers add up, the overseer nods and moves on. Precision has been replaced by mere function. You begin to feel your skills dull. The perfect hieratic hand you once trained for years to master now stiffens in the wrist. Your eye hesitates between signs. You start to miss errors, and no one notices or cares. The rats know you now. They pause at the edge of your desk, whiskers twitching, as if to read your work. You joke to yourself that they are the most attentive audience you have left. Sometimes, when the overseer is gone, you take scraps of discarded papyrus. and write verses you remember from your temple days, hymns, proverbs, even the opening lines of love poems. You keep them hidden in a small jar beneath your table. No one will read them. No one will know they exist. And yet, you keep writing. Because you have learned that a scribe without an audience is still a scribe. The world can take your title, your temple, even your reputation. But it cannot take the words that keep pressing at the edge of your mind, demanding to live. By the time your hair thins and your hands begin to tremble, you know the truth. The temple will never call you back. Your name will never be etched into the stone walls alongside the master scribes. You will die as you have lived these past years, surrounded by grain, dust, and silence. But you still have your hands, and they still remember the shapes of eternity. One evening, long after the overseer has gone and the torches have been snuffed out, you take a strip of unused papyrus from a shipment bound for the temple. It feels lighter than air, as if it knows its purpose. You grind your own ink, soot, gum, and Nile water and begin to write, not the storehouse tallies, not the daily accounts, but the book of coming forth by day, the book of the dead. You copy each spell with deliberate care, whispering the words as you write them, as though speaking them might bind them to your soul. The vignettes you draw are crude compared to the temple's illuminated scrolls, but they are yours. The weighing of the heart, the journey through the duat, the fields of reeds where the righteous rest. This scroll is not for a nobleman or a priest. It is for you. In the quiet of the storehouse, you had something no patron ever requested, your own name, woven into the prayers. It feels like a crime. It feels like a resurrection. Your last prayer is not to Ammon, Ra, or Osiris. It is to Think itself, to the papyrus, to the idea that somewhere centuries from now a stranger might unroll this scroll and speak your name aloud. But the desert has a long memory, and it does not care for small men. The sands will swallow the storehouse, the rats will scatter, the papyrus will crumble, and still, you write until the last line is complete. When you are gone, the kings will be remembered. The priests will be remembered. You will not, but for a brief moment, and the fading light. You believed you could be. This was your life as a forgotten scribe in ancient Egypt, a man who held the power of history in his hands, only to be erased from it. If you want more stories that bring the past to life, and refuse to let it be forgotten, subscribe for more timeless stories reimagined.